but what's most important here, that the house be immaculate, or that we be in a groove, feeling connected, feeling comfortable, being able to laugh, find that buddy and, that you can call up, or maybe it's your spouse.
Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where each week we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults. I'm your host, Audrey Monkey. Here on the podcast, I share my experiences raising 5 kids who currently range in age from 16 to 26 and working with thousands more as a summer camp director over the past 3 decades. I'm the author of Happy Campers, and I frequently do workshops with parents, teachers, and summer camp professionals about social skills, connection, and happiness, topics I researched extensively for my master's in psychology. If you want tools for raising kind, optimistic, self-reliant kids who become thriving adults, you've come to the right place. Hey, Sunshine Parenting listeners, welcome to episode 150, which is first being released on Friday, July 31st, 2020. My one simple thing tip for this week is to focus on strengths. For many of us, this has been the most concentrated time that we've spent with our spouses, with our children, and other people who we're sheltering with. There's often a correlation between the amount of time we spend with people and how annoyed we are by some of their personality quirks or weaknesses. A great way to counteract that annoyance and perhaps improve your relationship is to just take a few minutes to think about what you like about the person, what their strengths are. So maybe take a moment this week for your one simple thing to jot down the names of the people in your home, and next to their name, write down one strength that you really appreciate about them. It's remarkable what the simple practice of looking for strengths and focusing on strengths can do for your well-being and for your relationships. My guest this week on the podcast is Karen Kolp. Karen has a master's in education and is an early childhood development expert and parent coach. Karen helps worried and hovering parents by bringing reassuring, helpful advice and conversations on her podcast, which is called We Turned Out Okay, on her website, and in her Ninja Parenting community. Karen is also the author of several books, including one that I reviewed and talked with her about on the podcast last year called 10 Secrets Happy Parents Know: How to Stop the Chaos, Bring Out Your Child's Good Behavior, and Truly Enjoy Family Time. I've really enjoyed getting to know Karen and her work over the past few years, and I always feel encouraged after our conversations. The conversation I'm sharing today was originally a Facebook Live conversation with Karen during my advice and encouragement series back in the spring when we were just in the early stages of the pandemic and our sheltering. But after listening to our conversation again, I see that it is so applicable even now, 5 months into the pandemic. I hope you enjoy this conversation and feel as encouraged by Karen's words as I did. So, Karen Kolp, welcome to my advice and encouragement series.
Thank you so much. You are one of the people that I look to for advice and encouragement, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this. It's really special.
Well, thanks. It's mutual. That's what I'm trying to say. I think that I don't know, we were talking a little bit before we started recording about how it's been a little overwhelming, like all these Facebook calls and all these different things that we're doing. But I find that it's really filling me up. It fills my bucket to talk to encouraging people like you.
Totally. That I would say exactly the same things.
Yeah. Now that we all know that this is a marathon, not a sprint, we can all just take a deep breath and just figure out, what it is who we need to talk to and what we need to listen to, and
just sort of, I think we just all need to step back and reflect a little bit and just realize that we can do this, and we can encourage each other and help each other through. So
really,
Karen, you have
the way, can I just say the way I think of it is as sustainable. Like we have to make it sustainable. So.
Yeah. And I have been saying many times, and I think one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk to you about this is, depending on our circumstances, this is either harder or easier. For me, I know I am extremely blessed. My kids are older, so even the kids who are home, I'm not needing to homeschool anyone. They're all doing online classes. They're college and high school, and the other kid who's home as a teacher, she's conducting online classes from here. But so I don't have little kids at home, but I know there are a lot of parents who do, and now know that these kids are going to be home with them trying to get work done for a long time. And it's not pretty anywhere, really. I think that people need to know this is not going to be our finest hour of our homes being organized, our families looking picture perfect, all that. It's quite the opposite. And I know that this has been this is your whole thing. We Turned Out Okay. That's the name of your podcast. Just talk about sort of why you came up with that name and what your general message is to parents.
Oh, such a good question. So I actually came up with it because a friend of mine, all our kids were much younger at the time. So this podcast is about to hit 5 years old. So, we had 7, 8, 9-year-old kids, and they were starting to, the conversation at that time, and I think even towards today, has been so much about like, we need to shelter them, we need to protect them, we need to do everything we can to make sure that they have this completely smooth runway, that nothing ever goes wrong for them. And one of the dads was like, but listen, we encountered all those problems and we turned out okay. And it really made me think about how the other way that people use "we turned out okay" is to sort of justify doing terrible things, beating up a child or spanking or some, corporal punishment or something like that. And then they'll say, well, we turned out okay, and that was done with me. And I thought, you know what? I love this expression, and I want to make it something that's associated with very positive feelings of like, there is a way. And this is, I think, Audrey, what you're getting at. Like, there is a wonderful way to both nurture children and raise them to be confident, competent, happy, connected. And it all has to do with positive discipline. I was a preschool teacher for a long time before I became a parent coach. And I really was interested, and I have a master's degree in early childhood education. So I'm very focused on how can we help children feel connected with their world and with their families. And the other thing I would say is that at the time that I started the podcast, I had extremely limited use of my hands and my arms because I have a tendon disorder that I will have had this tendon disorder this summer for 9 years, which I cannot believe it's been that long. And I have spent time in a wheelchair. At times at the very beginning of this, I've lost almost complete use of my thumbs and hands. And while I do still have a lot of those issues, I don't have anywhere near what a typical person's hand and arm usage is. I have an amazing life. I am so lucky that I've been able to have the treatment, the physical therapy, the relationships that I have. They got stronger because of this tendon disorder. So I turned out okay, I think, is really where it started.
You know what, your story actually for parents and adults who are needing to pivot right now, job changes, maybe forever, you're a great inspirational story. Actually, your interview on Am Writing was really phenomenal, talking about how you are a writer who uses voice dictation. But so I think that's a whole nother thing. But I want to start by just stepping back a little bit. Who are you with, like in your family? Like, who's home with you right now?
So home with me is my husband and our 15-year-old. And we were in self-quarantine for 2 weeks. It's sort of middle to end of March because my younger son and I, my 15-year-old and I, had been traveling in Colorado. And so we were in Colorado that week where everything fell apart, on a national scale, like the NHL, the National Hockey League, stopped, having games, and the World Cup of skiing was canceled, and just everything that week sort of fell apart. And we started worrying, are we going to get home? Oh my gosh. And all we wanted to do was get home. My husband was like, I'm going to go out. I'm going to drive 4 days out to you if I need to. And we like, thankfully we were able to get home. We got off the plane and learned that we needed to self-quarantine. So for the first 2 weeks, we were without my older son, my 19-year-old, my college student. And because he couldn't be with us. So like he would bring us groceries and we would be able to, like, we were using the garage as an airlock, and, you know, we're sort of standing at one side and he's at the other. And it was hard. The first time I got to hug him, felt so good. Felt so incredibly good. So it is the four of us. But so occasionally the older one also is with his girlfriend at her house. So he's splitting his time.
And what are you finding? Like, one of the things that I just am curious about, because I think all of us are kind of trying to get into this new rhythm. What are you finding is working for you and your family? What are some of the things that you think have been like helpful to you getting through this time?
So one of the most helpful things has been an emphasis on home cooked food. And so my husband, when we first got home, told me, you don't have to worry about doing a single dish. I will do all the dishes if you will do all the cooking. And so like, I get to do because I can't do both because of my hands. I can't do both cooking and cleanup. So, so we've had, you know, with what's available, we've also been incredibly lucky that things are reasonably available around us. I have had to, you know, pivot a couple of times, but things came out better than I thought they were going to, and that's always good. So having a dinner or a lunch that you can sit together over has been wonderful. And then the other thing is making almost an appointment. I almost think of it as an appointment. So a friend of mine and I are FaceTiming every morning at 9 a.m. And there have been literally days this week where I was only I got out of bed at 8:58. I didn't even look in a mirror before my friend saw me in FaceTime. And so having those like, oh, I got to be there at this time, that's been really, really helpful. So,
oh my gosh, I love both of those things. That's very similar to me. And I think, you know, it's funny because you're an early childhood expert, but you're actually, your own kids now are older. So what you're living, the reality you're living during this time is more kind of what works with older kids. And I agree that with older kids, just having some kind of daily connection thing has been working for us too. We do dinner together, and then we kind of clean up from dinner together. And then the evenings have also been kind of nice. Usually after dinner, we'll we just kind of have, it's sort of like optional, but like yesterday my daughter and I had really lofty plans. We were like, we're going to go for a walk. Then we're going to watch the episode 3 of that crazy tiger thing that we're watching with my 16-year-old. And then we were going to do a craft together. She was making a little blanket for her dog, and I've been making these like masks. I've been trying to master making the face masks. And most people didn't opt in to all the activities, but I found two of my boys decided to play ping pong for a little while. So we ended up it's like dinner, and the evening has been more of our like, we're going to do a little bit of stuff together. But the rest of the day, everyone's pretty much doing their own work, their own classes, trying to get some exercise. We sometimes drift into a meal with each other, but not always. So it's very unstructured, unlike people with young kids who really need to, they have to like manage basically a school and their job and about 10 other things.
Yeah. And can I speak to that? Because
yes, please.
I think if people watching get nothing, or listening, get nothing else out of this, the thing I would most ask you to get, if you've got elementary age kids, maybe even middle school age kids, but particularly elementary age and younger, try your hardest to make it not about the completed worksheets and the color-coded schedule, and much, much more about connection with them, playing a game with them. There's a lot of learning that I love that the language actually. So we were homeschoolers for 12 years, and the language in the law in Massachusetts refers to learning that takes place, quote, outside of the four corners of a textbook. And we are in an emergency situation right now where the textbooks need to be set aside. Please set the textbooks aside and do experiential things as much. Allow them to do experiential things as much as they can. I've actually got I did a podcast a few weeks ago. It's available at weturnedoutok.com/323, which was all about 32 ways to amuse children, arranged and organized by the amount of adult input. So if you're trying to work and your child is stuck in the next room or something like that, here's a whole bunch of things that you can do. You can set something up for them and then know that there's at least that for them to play with until you can check in on them 20 minutes from now or something like that. Try to have those connective moments during the day. Try to play. I believe, was it you, Audrey, was it you or was it might've been another presenter in OKCon talking about it wasn't you because your kids are older. It was another one, but she was talking about how they have a bowl at the kitchen table of like suggestions for things to do together, dance parties, playing Scrabble, setting up an obstacle course in the house. And every night after dinner, everybody gets to contribute to this. And every night after dinner, they pull out one and they do it together. So trying to find some fun ways to connect with your kids. And I know, and also giving yourself permission to let them have 4 hours of screen time. I mean, like, as long as it isn't YouTube, if you've got young kids, YouTube is a no-no unless you are sitting next to them watching what they are watching, because the YouTube can be a very dangerous place. That's non-negotiable, but there's lots of other fun and available, screeny stuff right now.
So it's kind of this combination, that a little bit, some connection. And it's funny because the one thing that I did do, and I don't know if we talked about this, but I did a brainstorm with my family of activities we'd like to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not picking it out of a bowl, but we did brainstorm together. Like, what would you like to do? And everyone got things on the list. So we're kind of referring to it and trying to do some of them,
Cool.
like occasionally, like there's a one game that we like and we have that going, and a puzzle, and, we just have various activities available for if people want to do.
Yeah.
But I really, really like your emphasis on what we always called independent play. And I think this is the time where I think parents who are, used to being working parents, and then they pretty much dedicate their evening to family time and being very intentional all the time with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they're with them all the time, I think they really need to just like relax their expectations of themselves, that there's no way you're going to be engaged, connecting, entertaining your children for their entire waking hours. You need to balance it, maybe, try to do something fun every day, maybe for a little bit of time, but also finding those things that can keep your kids busy is really important right now.
Yeah.
Somebody else I talked to, a homeschool parent, who I think you guys who have homeschooled kids really have a lot of good ideas, because homeschoolers know, people who do it professionally or all the time know that you're not sitting with your kid constantly. You have some stuff that you're engaged with them, other stuff they're doing on their own, other stuff, it's like some online, it's like this combination. And I think parents need to recognize that when parents who are homeschoolers are actually really good at, they often have a quiet time, a rest hour, kind of like we have at camp. And the person I talked to last week, she has these quiet baskets for her kids, or quiet boxes, and they have them in their room, and they're only to be used during quiet time. And they have some fun activities in there, like a coloring or special pens that you only use during that time, or a maze book, or things that are you can do on your own, that are more quiet activities that you don't need your parent to help you with, and you can only do them when it's the designated time. So it's appealing, it makes kids, I get to go do my thing that I don't get to do, I can do my mazes, I can do those highlight search, remember those hidden pictures? I remember those as a kid, loving those.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good. So I'm going to definitely link to your episode 323, because I'm sure people will lean towards the activities that are less parental.
Yeah. And there's I'd really tried to give, I tried to give them in sort of gradients of adult input, but up until the last group, which is you do this together, there's a lot of them that are not, that are not things that would be necessarily done together. They're more things that you can help your child set up, and then they can come back to them whenever they want, or, they can spend hours. One of them is give them a box. I mean, kids of all ages love boxes. And so that I wanted to say too, as homeschoolers, that was really, those are my memories. Like my mom used to call what we do a perpetual Saturday morning, and by that she meant like we were always in our pajamas, unless we were out at the park or something like that. It was very social, very experiential. I have a homeschooling friend who now is saying, you know what, everyone is not homeschooling right now. Like, we don't want you to get the wrong impression of what homeschooling is, because it's not everybody sits down and does the state curriculum or something like that. It's very, very different. So as much as you can, make your home life, structure it so that there is a lot of connection, a lot of laughter, reading aloud to your child. Like, this is a question that I've gotten recently. Should my child read to me? Should I make my child read aloud? they're at that age where you're supposed to be reading aloud. And what I say is absolutely not. Like, if you can read aloud to them and make it infectious and fun, you will find them wanting to read aloud to you. And that's what we want. We want it to come from them. We want it to be motivated by them. So.
Oh my gosh, I love reading. And that's what Kate Rader said. There's one thing we do, it's read aloud. So I got inspired by her. And so I started reading aloud at dinner to my 16 and 19-year-olds. They're kind of rolling their eyes. We've been kind of skipping around. I can't find the right book, but the one that we landed on most recently is this. It's kind of a business book about communication called Crucial Conversations, which is kind of interesting. I don't know. We're just trying stuff out, but she kind of inspired me because that has always been something at camp. We found that even the older kids love having books read to them. You just have to find like interesting content or an engaging story that's maybe a little higher than their normal reading level, perhaps, or not, or just for fun. But I agree. My mom always read to me, and I gained a love of reading from being read to, and I think that's how most of us gain that. So I do think that I know it's all across the board what's being required of kids by their schools. I know it's very disjointed and it's different everywhere.
From like literally nothing, we are not going to teach anything new for the whole school year, to okay, here's today's worksheets. I mean, it's all over the place. It's as an educator, it's very frustrating for me because you can see parents wanting to make their kids do those things because that's what you're supposed to do, but it's a little detrimental. I mean, the worst of it is detrimental. Kids shouldn't be stuck doing worksheets for hours and hours a day. That's my professional opinion. Right. Nobody has to agree with me, but that's how I feel.
Well, I agree too. And I think that there's a little bit of an opportunity here for parents to just, especially when you have an elementary age kids, to just say, you know what? This worksheet or these, I mean, I remember the bane of my existence, my kids were in like 5th, 6th grade, they'd be given a word search, and I was like, you know what, I would rather you guys read right now. I'm going to put a note on this. We're not doing the word search.
I mean, go outside and run around, do something.
Yeah, like do something else. So I think this is an opportunity with schools maybe being a little disjointed. I think parents can opt into and out of the curriculum, and there's really not going to be I don't think any kind of consequences for younger kids. A lot of the older kids schools are talking about just going pass fail now because of equity issues, which is very true. Not all kids have access to all the same online things. So it's likely that much of what is happening now doesn't really count towards like their.
Yeah.
So given that, I think parents can, without not having their kids do anything that their brain's engaged, but still relax a little bit in terms of perhaps if the worksheets or the assignments are just too much, or it's some weird math that doesn't make sense anymore because it's the new math and you don't know it and you can't help your kid with it, have them count some change or do a game or do something else. But I think we can, this is a time where I think parents get to have their own autonomy over what their kids are doing.
It's a rare time for that. I mean, you talk about what is possible, which is an expression that Pat Flynn has used. He is an entrepreneurial podcaster. I really love him. He's got the Smart Passive Income podcast, and he's just relentlessly positive. And he asked the question, what does this make possible? Mm-hmm. And it does make possible a whole bunch of scary things, but we can't live in that space. We have to live like this. Maybe this will make possible some positive things. Maybe your kids will, maybe our children, will discover clay in the brook behind the house and learn how to, as has happened to us when we were homeschoolers, learn how to like take that clay and make it into actual usable, moldable clay. Like people used to do that because that was what was available to them, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. So like again, thinking about what learning happens outside the four corners of a textbook and going for that learning right now,
Even just cooking. I mean, I keep saying that as a great example. If you're still working from home and trying to do a job and you have some kids at home who are, of an age, I mean, even pretty young kids can help with some cooking. But I mean, if you have even an 8 or 9-year-old, they can cook. They can cook a meal for you, and you can just teach them, and then they can just do it on their own. And that would make them feel great and be an incredible life skill to take out of this time, and would end up saving you some time. So I'm a big proponent of that, having 5 kids myself. I mean, I've always been in this mindset of, okay, we're all here. We all need to kind of help out. And so it's always been my mindset is everyone's helping. no matter how young you are, we're all going to do something because I don't have time. I can't do all the laundry because I also work outside the, and so I think that mindset has been helpful. Sometimes we just have to remember that our kids can do more. So if we're thinking like, oh my gosh, the house is a mess and I have to do it. And I think that we can enlist our kids, and now more than ever, we can just say, hey, we really need you.
So can I ask Audrey, as a summer camp director and owner, do you ever call chores capers? What at our camp we used to call them capers at my overnight summer camp, and I just always loved the idea of like doing capers. Capers were somehow different, even though you're sweeping and cleaning and stuff like that. So I didn't know if that was a thing in your camp or if it was just ours. But
we haven't used that, but I remember that term. Like I do know that term. Yeah, that's a good one. I kind of like to call them just like household duties or responsibilities or whatever you want to call it. Chore does have a negative connotation.
I know it does have a little bit.
Like when people say something, oh, it's such a chore. Whatever.
Yeah.
I also allow, loud music can be played while you're doing chore. I mean, it doesn't have to be like we're grudgingly doing our chore. We can like have something fun element to it.
Loud music is the best.
Yeah. So that's good too. You have your We Turned Out Okay podcast, and then you have your Ninja Parenting Community. And who is that for, and what happens in that community?
So I am a podcaster, and I am I'm a parent coach. And so the podcast is We Turned Out Okay. It's got 300 plus episodes now. I hope to continue it long into the future. Comes out every Tuesday. It is one of my favorite things in the whole wide world to do. Early on in the podcast, I did an episode called Positive Discipline Ninja Tactics, and it was downloaded like gangbusters. I'd never seen anything like this before. And from that, I wrote a book called Positive Discipline Ninja Tactics. And in them, what I basically did was I've got a lot of like little tools as a preschool teacher to teach. So for example, making no sound like yes is one of the ninja tactics. And when I became a parent coach, which now the Ninja Parenting Community has been open for almost 4 years, which I can't believe how it's been that, woo. And what I do in there as a parent coach is I help parents on a real personal level as they are not just implementing the ninja tactics, but going through all of the trials and tribulations. We've got a mom in there whose daughter has like real speech issues. And so she's getting frustrated because she's just not, the speech is hard for her. And we've got another mom who we've seen her through all the potty training and all the temper tantrums and a move from one city to another city, which they did because of the childcare. I mean, so real, like the issues that parents have, sometimes they just feel like they don't know what to do about them. And I'm a good person to ask for what to do about them. So that's the Ninja Parenting Community is an extension of the show in the sense of I teach all these things, but when you're in the Ninja Parenting Community, I get to take it to a real personal level. So somebody can ask me a question and I can say, okay, here's what you should do. And I love it. I mean, I feel like that's where my family is. And they feel like that too, which is just very, very fun.
What is the age like at which, like, I know that probably people stick with you for a while, but when you think about your general age group, is it more on the younger side?
I would say it's probably 10 and under is really, is really the focus. Cause that's where so I always used to say my master's degree ended at age 9, grade 3 went up until. So when my oldest turned 10, I was like, I don't know what to do now, but he's still the same kid. And so we figured that out. But yeah, anybody, I'm really good with the toddlers, with the preschoolers, with the challenges that come up for elementary school age kids. I think I could be helpful with older kids. But I might be more likely to refer someone to somebody else who could be more helpful if, in that case. So to join the Ninja Parenting Community, you could go to WeTurnedOutOK.com/join NPC. And for OKCon 2020, every week as the new presenters are being presented, I'm putting those on a special page on my website, which you can get to by going to okcon.com, OKAY, okcon.com.
It's like its own website.
It's got its own, I know it's
Wow,
got it is a page
look
on
at
my
you.
website, but it's got its own website. Yeah.
Nice.
So for a long, long time, my Twitter feed, my Twitter handle was Stone Age Techie. So I was pretty clueless, but I'm feeling very proud of myself because I can do things like get a domain name and make it go where I want it to go. So, OKCon
That's
2020.
awesome. Good job. That's not Stone Age Techie at all of you.
Not
Well,
anymore. Actually, can I make one more recommendation if
Sure.
people want? I have been finding extremely great solace in fluffy romance novels of a particular. So I'm a fan of I'm a huge fan of Jane Austen. So books that sort of feel a little bit like Jane Austen to me. Like
Yeah.
I've now reread the Jane Austens to shreds. I will again, but are you a Jane Austen fan too?
Well, this is so crazy. I have never read. I'm reading Charlotte Bronte right now.
Oh,
No, it's Charlotte. Wait, what? No, Jane Eyre. Sorry, Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre. You read so
by-
Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then I just read not Pride and Prejudice, but another one of hers.
Sense and Sensibility.
Persuasion. Persuasion.
I think that one might be my favorite one.
And it's so weird. I had started Persuasion before all this, but I'm finding solace. What's funny is these British literary works they're slower paced with more language. And that's actually like good reading right now. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like we've gotten into these shorter books and fast and get it done and whatever audio. And it's nice to have something that you just kind of live in for a while.
Yeah. So I've been reading, there's an author called Mary Balogh, Balogh. And she writes occasionally, anyway, in series. So she'll write an entire 5 or 6 books about a family in particular and how each one finds their spouse, basically. And yeah, I mean, if you're not into I have a friend, actually, Serena Bowen talks about pearl clutchers, right? So if you're a pearl clutcher, you can skip past the racy bits if you want to, but these stories are just, they give me hope. And I think that's why I wanted to recommend it. If you're a person who has trouble reading, things that are frightening or upsetting, particularly before bed, these are great before bed books,
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to look this up. Of course, all I need is more books, right? I have been cleaning out my library and organizing and color coding. That's been one of my funny, I think everyone I don't know. For me, organizing is really relaxing. I know that sounds weird, but I like feeling organized. It's like feeling a sense of control over some area makes you feel a little bit, I don't know. Yep. So I've been kind of going through and seeing which books I have and sorting through. I found some duplicates that I'm giving away. And so I'm in a mode of thinking that I want more books right now, but I'm going to clean out. And then I'm going to have my list of my next reads. And my daughter, who's an English major, she had all the Jane Austen books, which is why I'm kind of reading through those. And I found Jane Eyre also just in our library. So I'm kind of trying to read through what we already have first and everything, but that's a great recommendation. Okay, Karen, well, we could just chat all day. I'm sure we could just keep going on and on, but I'm excited. It's fun to get to collaborate with you and just, I'm excited that I'm on the OKCon. I look forward to joining you all next week on Wednesday to watch it and stuff. Yep. And I hope that, our conversation has encouraged someone out there. If there's anybody who tries any of the activities that we talked about, I would love for you to comment. I'm going to put links to all of the different things that Karen mentioned, all the different ways you can connect with her. Her podcast is awesome. The Ninja Parenting Community is a great resource, especially for those of you with younger kids. And just so many good things that you have going on right now. And just your story. I think that I want to link to wherever people can listen to your story, because you have a great story of resilience of, when you could no longer be a preschool teacher, how you pivoted to this whole new thing that opened up this world. It's sort of like when God closes a door, he opens a window or something like that kind of thing. Yeah. Like you took something that was really a scary, bad thing and turned it into something amazing. Look at all the people you're helping now with your work.
Oh, Audrey, thank you so much. I really appreciate those words. I have goosebumps. One of my favorite things about it is I get to collaborate with wonderful people like you. And I really appreciate all the work that you're doing and all the help that you are providing. It's been like last week, the week that we had our conversation, we started out talking about how, some things are not sustainable. We can't keep having many, many Zoom calls in a week. But I was so happy that week because I got the ideas, the wonderful ideas of people like you. So I really appreciate all that you do. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. And I think we all need each other right now. This is one of
Yes.
those times where we don't go into our silos just because we're, needing to stay home doesn't mean we can't stay connected and stay encouraging and support each other. And I think more than ever, I hope that one of the outcomes from this is we all realize that we need each other. And, and we can lean on each other and we'll get through this better together than alone.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
well, thank you so much, Karen. I'm inspired going into the weekend, and I'm so glad to be ending my week with a call with you. And I just wish you good health and so much fun.
All
Okay,
right,
take
thank you so
care.
much. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
I've always loved listening to music, especially songs that have really positive and encouraging lyrics. So this week, my favorite is some music that I've really enjoyed during this challenging time. The first song is by Thomas Rhett and a variety of other artists called Be a Light. And the second song is Matthew West's Take Heart. I've put links to the music videos for both of these songs in this week's show notes. And I'd love to hear from you if you have any songs that you have found really encouraging and helpful during this time. As always, you can find notes, links, and other resources related to today's conversation by visiting my website at sunshine-parenting.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for my email list so that you don't miss out on any of the great resources I have available for raising thriving kids. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate you sharing it with a friend. Please take a moment to give Sunshine Parenting a rating or review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's end with a quote from my book, Happy Campers. Creating a close and connected family culture that promotes positive, lifelong relationships is the most important thing we can do for our children. Warm and supportive parent-child relationships, a sense of being loved, and help and support from family members serve as protective factors and increase children's resilience and their ability to face many of life's inevitable challenges. I'm Audrey Monkey. Thank you for joining me for the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. Join me again next week for more conversations about raising kids who become thriving adults.